What's up, y'all? This is Mike Manzer with another Manzer Faust Productions video, and I'm here today to do another in my series of getting to know your partner label, uh, going into the OCN partner labels. So the first one I did was on Fun City, which is a partner label that's no longer a partner label. They moved on to MVD. They seem to be doing pretty well there. They haven't started releasing a ton over there yet, but there's a couple of titles over there that I'm excited about. But we're not talking about them again today. Today, I'm going to dive into another one of my favorite partner labels. This one's on Canadian International Pictures. And the other day, I was actually on Instagram and they were promoting that they got a whole slot of them coming up. It's been, I don't know, like 16 releases on the OCN so far. Very cool. And I like this label because they really dive deep beyond the film itself, but the like other works that the filmmakers had made, some like television stuff, made for the Board of Labor or whatever groups were making films at the time. Uh, Commercial work, all this other stuff. They just pack these discs with so much interesting like ephemera of the time of when these were made. Lots of cool documentaries, a lot of stuff I don't think was like really available or people didn't think there would be access to in the past. Very cool. And it's cool to see like a lot of like early Canadian film. Canada has a very important film um, history, culture up there. It gave birth to a lot of great directors, including one of my favorites of all time, David Cronenberg. Really got his start, through their kind of, tax shelter era and all that kind of stuff. So very interesting um, label to focus on Canadian films. And a lot of the unsung heroes of their cinema. Very cool. So let's get into it with the. I believe this is the first one that they released. Um, and it's pretty decent flick. I'll get more into it. It's the Ernie Game from 19, I believe around like 65 or 67. It's hard to read the back of this thing. Um, the Ernie Game is directed by Don Owen. Um, Interesting little like proto Taxi Driver kind of vibe to this, kind of a likable misfit. Uh, Goes slowly insane throughout the progress of the film. He has like a love interest who wants nothing to do with him. Um, he has another interest that's a little bit too into him if you look at it from a modern day lens. It's just he's definitely like a slacker more so than the Travis Bickle prototype we would see later on. It was more of like just working himself to death and a little bit too obsessed with the job and the culture around it. I don't really think Ernie's as great a character as Travis Bickle is. This is an earlier film. This is a lot lower budget. A lot of these early Canadian films, I'll talk about this more with the next set of movies, but they have more of like a pseudo documentary kind of vibe to a lot of them. Excuse me. And the aesthetic does kind of remind me of a French New Wave at the time, but more like personal stories. It's not as much like of a crime element and stuff. It's just more like kind of slow burn, very talky kind of film. But I kind of like that. It's got some fun atmosphere. Um, Ernie's definitely not a likable character, but you see some redemption. The ending, he definitely goes off on quite a bad bad streak, but it's an interesting film. What I really like about this is it features a documentary by the director named Ladies and Gentlemen, Mr. Leonard Cohen, which is very cool because I thought it was going to be a documentary about like when he was a songwriter and coming up in the late 60s, but it's actually in the early 60s. It's around 65. So he was still doing poetry. He was well known for being a poet, and his kind of melancholic style towards poetry, and it's very interesting seeing a very young Leonard Cohen, and it's kind of just your typical documentaries, cinema verite of the time. Just a camera crew following him around, getting him in intimate moments. You got a narrator kind of talking about his importance in the world of poetry and everything like that. So that's very cool. There's some other cool little short films by the same director. Just really tight discs. And it's an interesting little snapshot into some early genre filmmaking. Uh, Also about the Ernie Game, he's not. It's a different aesthetic because he's not a war person. I believe he's let out of a asylum, so you got a little bit of a different aesthetic there. Again, not as much of like a workman kind of thing, but the same kind of descent into insanity, more from like a slacker, just wanting to pathologically lie his way through everything and just have people feel sorry for him. He's very manipulative. So yeah, if you like Taxi Driver, this is an interesting kind of like parallel kind of film, earlier sort of film, but definitely that would definitely be far superior. But yeah, interesting little flick. Ernie Game, definitely worth it for that Leonard Cohen documentary though. Up next, we got a three film set. Well, three main films and then a bunch of shorts. And it's The Other French New Wave, Volume 1. Again, happy to see Volume 1 because that means there is more on the way. I like this cover image of the puzzles and stuff. Very cool. So this is three films made during the kind of French New Wave era, going over in France, and then these are all Quebec films. So very French aesthetic to that part of Canada, and these are very interesting films. So. Cat in the Bag is an interesting kind of little bit of a play on Cassavetes. I don't remember which film. You got an excellent score by John Coltrane. That was really what stood out to me. It's kind of a pseudo documentary about a couple kind of on the brink of adulthood, trying to figure out their way through life and talking about their differences. And I believe the boyfriend in it is like kind of a revolutionary activist kind of person. Very interesting, very spontaneous, and very like just on a whim, just go out and shoot this kind of stuff. It's very interesting. Um, Again, the standout for it is definitely the John Coltrane score. Being a big jazz fan, really, really did it for me. Awesome, awesome score. The Merry World of Leopold Z. Christmas Eve is a snowplow driver who's constantly getting nagged by his wife. But he's you know stuck to the job. He's got this boss that he kind of hangs out with, who's constantly on him to you know do the job. There's been a big snowstorm in the area, so they need as many trucks. I guess it's kind of like a low employment time, so you know they're not able to take too many risks. But at the same time, he's got to see his family. He's got to take care of Christmas shopping. I believe one of his kids is performing at like the church or something. I can't remember that whole plot line, but there's that. Um, just it's fun, it's very kind of goofy, hangout kind of film style. It's definitely relatable characters. It's entertaining to see the back and forth between his boss, his kind of ride partner in the snow plow, and Leopold. And, just entertaining, simple little film. Not a lot to really say about it, but I enjoyed it. And then the last film is Yule 7871, which is directed by Yak Gobut. I cannot, again, I'm terrible with names, but I'm going to bring him up later on in another release. I'm trying to remember which one this was. Yeah, this is, from what I remember, it's more of like a fish out of water story. Him going through, the Canadian landscape, trying to figure out like the culture. He's a Parisian. So yeah, pretty interesting. And you got the guy from France coming over to Quebec, even though it's still a French speaking culture, they're like very very different. So it does work in with that the other French New Wave. So yeah, altogether pretty interesting films, especially as like time capsules of when they were made. Personally, I'd probably go with the last one. From what I remember, it was the one I enjoyed the most. A little bit more of a serious film when compared to the others. Yeah. So if you're interested, if you're like me, you love French New Wave, kind of a different spin on it. These are very, slice of life, pseudo documentary style things, which Dard was making quite a bit of those. But yeah, definitely a different feel to some of these. But yeah, very cool set. Up next, another from Yak Gobat. Again, probably saying that extremely wrong. I don't really care. It's early that I'm recording this. We got The Mob. This was fucking great. I loved this disc. Very cool film. Sort of an aging mobster starts confessing to a bunch of the stuff that he's seen to one of the to this like radio show host. Very like chaotic kind of like conversation. He's like running to different like undisclosed locations and feeding him more and more information. He's got two guys after him trying to kill him because I think he did a hit down in New York City, and he's like trying to escape to Quebec to like get out of their like range. But they hunt him down, and they're going from all of his different locations, and trying to kill him. And it's just interesting hearing him talk about like all of the different like shit he's seen go down and the crimes even he's committed, and seeing all the different lengths these other guys go through. Like they're listening to the radio as he's talking and trying to figure out where he's located. It's a fun little, like film in that way. Definitely a crime aesthetic, which I'm always about. Very entertaining. The main character, what is his name? Chico, is very fun to watch. And he's got his infidelities. He's got his different relationship problems that are coming up throughout the film. the host of the kind of radio talk show. It's more of one of those kind of like on air therapist kind of radio talk shows. Um, Interesting dynamic there. You get the very, what I always like in these kind of films that deal with radio. You get the radio station kind of hijinks happening, a little bit of a proto talk radio kind of vibe to it. So I enjoyed that a lot. So yeah, there's a couple of short films. There's a collection of really cool Quebec crime films from the 60s and 70s. Uh, just some other bonus shorts that he made. It's not as packed as some of these, but I really enjoy the main film. Very cool. Um, very, guerrilla style filmmaking as well. Just go to a place and shoot. Fast paced, very talky, but it goes by quickly. You don't get bored by what they're saying. The characters are very entertaining. So yeah, The Mob. So next one is what really got me into this label, and I'm gonna have a lot to say about this. This is probably my favorite release that they've done, as far as like what's involved in it, what the extras are, the kind of historical piece that it is, and it's a kind of a double feature. And loaded with a bunch of other stuff, but interesting kind of like aesthetic they're going with this. And this is Buster Keaton Rides Again, paired with Helicopter Canada. And I can't remember if I talked about this in a previous video, but this is very cool. I love Buster Keaton. He's probably like one of my favorites of the silent film era. I'm much more of like a Chaplin guy. I adore City Lights, and later on The Great Dictator is like one of my all-time favorite films. I love like Modern Times is really fun. Harold Lloyd is really good too. I like a lot of his stuff. Buster Keaton, I just really love a lot of his slapstick kind of stuff. The General is great. I can't remember the name of a lot of them. I'm kind of fucking that up, but yeah. Buster Keaton's just like a massive, influential figure within silent film genre. And this is in the 60s. He's kind of at the end of his life. He's kind of drifted from the spotlight, developed a hell of a drinking problem. And this focuses on the filming of his final piece called The Railrodder, which is featured on here as a special feature. And yeah, this is like a year before his death, so he's right there. It's interesting seeing them try to throw together this short, which was basically like kind of made as a like tourism thing for Canada, where he steals like one of those like tiny railroad cars and just starts riding around on it and goes through all these different landmarks of Canada. So it's kind of, and it's done in his like slapsticky silent film. He's just kind of reacting to stuff. There's a cool little like jazzy soundtrack in the background and stuff. Dixieland style jazz, so early jazz, definitely fits his like silent film aesthetic. Uh, so it's interesting seeing that, but it's interesting seeing him like go back and forth with the different filmmakers. Their differences and opinions of where they want this film to go and how they want the shots done and the bits. Has, I believe, his wife or something has these narrated parts talking about his life. I might be wrong about that, but I do remember his wife having some stuff to say about his life and stuff. But it's going through his like career in silent films and what he'd been doing since that time. Just kind of the downfall throughout his career. It's very interesting to see these kind of profiles done, and also get the impact of his final days. Again, very heavy drinker at the time. He hadn't had a much of a career in a long time. Um, Ever since that cycle, pretty much. So it's interesting, definitely, to see the final days. The kind of attempt to build up his career again. And the actual short is a lot of fun. It's prime Buster Keaton. And even in his old age and his kind of, um, he's not as physical as he would be in something like The General. It's entertaining. It's a lot of fun, and it really does a great job of doing what it's there to do and sell you on these amazing landscapes of Canada. Very fun. Um, Helicopter Canada is the other film on the disc. I love this, and again, referencing the giant projector setup I have in my bedroom, this is the perfect film to have on there. So it's basically helicopter footage of different um, landscapes of Canada to celebrate the centennial. Um, just, I guess it was Oscar nominated as well. Just beautiful helicopter footage flying through all these different areas. It has native, uh, you know, poets and activists and speakers and tribes people from the area narrating. Very cool music. Um, you get a cameo from the Beatles, which is kind of strange in it, but it works. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff. Like I said, the footage is like amazing. If you definitely have like a big TV, this is definitely the thing to put on. It's just great background kind of stuff. It almost feels like those, Planet Earth, Attenborough documentaries. Just very cool. The speakers are all really interesting to listen to as well. The music's fantastic. It's very native music to its area, so it fits the aesthetic perfectly. And then the features on this are really kind of neat. You have a lot on here. You have this kind of montage compilation of all films that were made for the kind of um, labor movement in Canada. Kind of these little like ads that they would run, and you have this kind of like financial labor focused sort of aesthetic to all of these a lot of these short films. You got My Financial Career, which is kind of like a animated uh, little short animated thing about like a guy going to a bank with just a little bit of money and then taking the rest out. It's pretty. It's just your simple little animated film trying to. I think it's to promote a bank, like a local bank, but also to teach you about the dangers of novice banking. I guess I don't know. The Christmas tree decoration I think is on a couple of these. Just an interesting little short about a short animated film about a guy trying to figure out the best like star to put on top of his tree. Yeah, it's just an entertaining little short. Um, you got the Railroader again. And then Canada Land, I don't really remember. I think it's more of a companion piece to Helicopter Canada, just more kind of musings about the landscape of Canada. So very cool disc, a lot of different types of content on it. I had a real good time with this. Um, yeah, very cool. And if you're interested in Buster Keaton, his career, silent film in general, definitely highly recommend this release. Up next, we got another film from what was his name? Don Owen, who did the Ernie Game. Nobody Wave Goodbye. I really, really enjoyed this film a lot more than the Ernie Game. This is more of a like kind of rebellious teen kind of film. Definitely like got some after school special kind of vibes, but at the same time, you know, it's very in line. This is from '64, so it definitely has a lot of that Kazan, East of Eden, the James. Why can't I fucking remember his name? You know, Rebel Without a Cause, James Dean. A lot of that like youthful rebellion, live fast kind of vibe. Basically, a teenager tries to go out on his own. You know, all the different problems he faces. He's doing terrible in school. He's more focused on his job as I believe he's a toll worker. The guy he works with gives him some really dumb advice, and he ends up getting in trouble, and he's got to come at him like, oh, you're doing this to the wrong people. It's just, he's definitely like very vulnerable, and you know his need to go out there and start a new life and everything like that, be on his own. His girlfriend, him and his girlfriend barely see eye to eye. She's a very accomplished student, from what I remember, and just there's a lot of that, you know, going against the parents, who are, you know, the dad's very straight laced, you know, disciplinarian. Mother is very nurturing, can't let go of her child kind of vibe. Yeah, very. It's a decent film. I really, you know, it spoke to me though, because I like that era of these kind of, you know, youth rebellion kind of films. I really feel like for um, them, this was like a prime period. But I could see if that's not really like your bag, this might not completely do it for you. I really enjoyed it. For a bonus, you have a little interesting documentary called Lonely Boy. Can't remember his name, but he was a big Canadian kind of, not lounge, but like kind of crooner. Uh, um, so yeah, it does kind of connect to, you know, it's seeing this like young kid. I don't even think he's a past his teens yet. He might be like 18 or 19. Um, you know, going through this world where like everyone's in love with him. It almost looks like, you know, the early Beatles, where women in his audience are like passing out, and he performs for many different age groups and stuff, and he's very respected. Got an amazing voice, you know, pretty decent songwriter too. So, um, you know, interesting kind of profile. Kind of relates to that other film about Leonard Cohen on the first disc. So, yeah, you got some other interesting. You got Runner, which is kind of portrait of a, like, I believe it's running in the Olympics. I can't remember. Toronto Jazz is really cool on this, kind of giving a backdrop to the early '60s Toronto jazz scene. Very cool hearing them talk about their influences, and how they get gigs and different, kind of aesthetics throughout the area, what jazz is, all about, how to play jazz, and just very, very cool. Um, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. You got a lot of like kind of like community organization kind of shorts on here as well. Just very cool. Again, if you're not really into the like kind of teen rebellion sort of film, this might not be for you, but it's definitely entertaining, and the features definitely sell it. So yeah, nobody wave goodbye. And the last one, I'm not going to go into detail. In the last video, I talked about it, and talked about it in 2 other videos. So real quick, speaking parts, solid film. Really love the aesthetic. The premise of it is very cool. So yeah, if you haven't seen my other videos, go back and watch those where I go more into detail about this. But this is definitely a great release. Awesome movie. Yeah. So that'll be it for this. I got a couple more videos coming out over the next couple of days. Just plodding along, doing everything I can. So again, apologies for the last video. The audio was definitely pretty wonky on it. Hopefully this comes out better. I'll talk about some stuff in the next video, some announcements and such, because it kind of goes more with that video, in my opinion. So yeah, if you want to follow me on social media, it's the Hordes of Manzerfaust on Instagram. And yeah, that'll about do it. So this is Mike Manzer with another Manzerfaust Productions video. Stay fucking metal.